from RTO here. Welcome to Monday. Hope you had a great weekend, everyone. And we're going to kick off, as we do most Mondays, with part of our ongoing story. And at the moment we are doing Neil Young. So this is part 4, the 1980s, which, to be quite honest, is not my favourite decade of Neil Young records. Out of the 5, I think there's 2 that I really like, and the rest, well, I don't really like. They're the best of a bad batch. This is not my favourite, as I said. If it's yours, that's great. But for me, I'm not a big fan of 1980s solo albums by Neil Young. So he released, as a solo artist, 5. So let's get cracking. So coming in at number 5 is from 1983, and it's Trans. Playing on here is Neil Young on vocals, vocoder, guitars, synths, clavier, electric piano. Niels Lofgren on guitars, piano and organ, electric piano. Ben Keith on pedal steel guitar. Frank San Pedro on guitars. Bruce Palmer, Billy Tolbert on the bass. Ralph Molina on drums. Usual crowd, Crazy Horse, and Joe Lala on percussion. First track on here is a thing called Little Thing Called Love. Best track on the album. It's the only one on here that I really think that sounds like a decent track. Computer Age. Now this to me is probably one of the worst tracks Neil ever recorded. It's that voice. It sounds like Sparky the piano. I'm half expecting Cher to start singing as well. It's just horrible. What was he thinking? It just doesn't work for me. We Are in Control again. Okay, you know, it's a computerized vocals. I just don't know what this is about. I really don't like it. Transformer Man, it's okay ish. Computer Cowboy, aka Sky Crusher. It's computerized. The voice. It's absolutely awful. Hold On to Your Love. At least we're singing here, but it's more of a synthesizer-driven track than guitars. Sample and Hold is just dreadful again. It's too electronic. What? Mr. Soul. The only good thing about this is there is a decent guitar solo on it. Like an Inca. Second best track on here. It actually does sound like a Neil Young track. I would, personally, I think this is one of the worst albums Neil Young put out. There's only a couple of songs on here worth listening to. The rest is absolutely dire. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 1 out of 10. Coming in at number 4 from 1986. This was his 16th studio album overall, and it's Landing on Water. Neil plays harmonica, lead guitar, and synthesizer. Always there. Steve Jordan, drums and synthesizer. Danny Korchman, guitar and synthesizer. The San Francisco Choir Boys. First track is called Weight of the World. Another horrible track. The keyboards are horrible. Ugh, dearie me. Violent Slide. This is that whole 80s production thrown into one track. Awful. Hippie Dream. Now this one isn't too bad. At least you know it's sort of a Neil Young track. Bad News Beat. Everything about the 80s. No. Touch the Night. Now this is the best of the worst, I'd say. At least it's got a decent guitar riff on it, and that's all I'll say. People on the Street. Horrible production, hollow drums, cheesy keyboards. Ugh. Hard Luck Stories. It just gets worse. Cheesy 80s nonsense. I got a problem. Yeah, I have a problem with this album. It's just terrible. The drums are off-putting. Pressure. Worst track on here is just a plastic sounding track. Drifter. And now it's just a very yuck album. Another bad album. just don't like it. So although I think there's a couple of tracks on here that are much better than trance, so I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 2 out of 10. Okay, coming in at number 3 from 1985, Old Ways. Lots of people play on here. The Wayward Wind. It's very country, but at least it's not 80s production. It's okay, that one. Get Back to the Country. Yeah, very country sci-fi, but you know it's a guitar-based album. Are there any more real cowboys? Favourite track on this? I think this is a lovely harmonica bit. And I think it's Neil that plays the harmonica. It's a proper song. Once Again an Angel. A bit dreary. It goes on and on. Not my favourite. Misfits. Second favourite track on here. It's another sort of very cowboy song with some banjo on it. It's pretty good. California Sunset. Neil's vocal is not very good on that. His vocals all over the place. Old Ways, the title track. I love the harmonica on this. It's a real good vocal from Neil as well. Excellent track. My Boy. Dreary as ditch water. That's all I'll say about it. Bound for Glory. I don't mind this track. I like the bit in the middle. It's got a nice piano piece. Not too bad. Where is the Highway Tonight? Pleasant enough track. Wouldn't say it's my favourite, but it's pleasant enough. Okay, this isn't a bad album. It's a lot better than the 2 other albums. You know, at least there's no cringe factor on this, so I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 5 out of 10. Okay, coming in at number 2 from 1980, Hawks and Doves. Lots on here as well playing, so we'll just go straight into the tracks. Little Wing. It's not a bad track. It's 2 minutes long. It's pretty solid. I don't mind that. The Old Homestead, not too bad. It's a great vocal from Neil on this. So it's not so bad. Then we have Lost in Space. Pretty solid. Nice track. Nice vocal. Captain Kennedy. Some great guitar work on this one. I don't mind that track. Staying Power. Some nice piano on it. It's okay. Coastline isn't too bad. A very uplifting track. Some nice steel pedal guitar on that one. Union Man, best track on here. It's got that sort of country rock feel to it. Some nice vocals and guitars on that one. Coming Apart at Every Nail. Very country. Lots of fiddles on it. It's okay. And the title track, Hawks and Doves. Second favourite track on here. It's okay. I wouldn't say it's the best album, but it's not synthesizer backed and funny vocals on it. It's reasonable. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 6 out of 10. But out of the Bad Batch, the best one of the 90s for me is from 1989, and it is Freedom. You got Neil Young on here doing guitars and harmonica, Chad Cromwell on drums, Rick Rosas on the bass, Frank Sampiro on guitars, Ben Keith on saxophones. We've got additional personnel. We've got Linda Ronstadt doing some backing vocals on a couple of tracks, Tony Marcio on bass, Steve Lawrence on tenor sax, Larry Craig on baritone, saxophone, Claude Claliette on trombone, and John Fumo and Tom Bray do some trumpets. First track is an acoustic version of Rockin' the Free World. I do like the acoustic version, but we'll talk about this a bit later. Okay, second track is called Crime in the City 60 to 0 Part 1. Isn't too bad, a little bit too long, but it's a solid track. Don't Cry. Still got lots of little bits of 80s because it's the last year of the 80s. Hanging on the Limb. I like this. I do like the harmony vocals. I mean, it features Linda Ronstadt, so it's not too bad. El Dorado. It's alright. I wouldn't say it's the best. The Ways of Love. I like this. I like the backing vocal. It's Linda Ronstadt again. Works well with Neil on that. Someday. it's all right. On Broadway, interesting track. It's got little bits of The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway on it as well. It's different. Wrecking Ball, I like this. I love the piano on it. And Neil's vocals are super. I'm no more. Second favourite track on this album. I love the bass line on it. It's a proper grunty one. Then we have Too Far Gone. Not a bad track. Got some nice guitar work on that. Then we get Rocking on the Free World. I'd say it's the best track of the 80s. I don't mind the acoustic version of this, but this is the proper rock. It really rocks. It's an excellent track. My favourite of the 80s. Okay, it's gone away from that 80s sound on it, but there are little bits of plastic on this. But out of all the albums of the 80s, this one is the one that really got a little bit more gumph on it. As I said, not the best years for Neil, so I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 6.5. Okay, next week we go to the 90s, and he only made one album as a solo artist in the 1990s. He did do other stuff, but it was the only one, and we'll be having a look at that next week. Okay, coming up next is A Perfect Side, and we're going to do a bit of heavy rock, metal, thrash, whatever you want to call it, and we're going to look at the Metallica's biggest selling album, Metallica, also known as the Black Album. I just call it Metallica. So that's what we're looking at. Bye for now.